Welcome back, everyone. My name is Trap. Tonight we're going to go over installing Arch Linux into a Windows subsystem for Linux, WSL2. The following tools are going to be used during this demonstration. For an RDP connection, I'm using Reboot. I have connected to a Windows 11 machine right now. I'm using a Windows terminal. I'll be using a bash shell and command prompt. You will also probably see me using Fugitive and possibly FCF, and we are currently using Wiki as my, Wiki Vim as my wiki. So let's get it on. First thing we're going to do is go to the actual detailed instructions. They can be found on Yuck7's site. I'm going to bring up that site right now so we can see. We're going to follow his instructions, and he has some documentation that we'll put together. We will use the documentation. I'll make some adjustments. We will be following method 1 in that documentation. I'm going to go back one step. We will use method 1, and we will also want to get the software from the latest release section. In particular, we're interested in the Arch.zip file as well as the Arch WSL certificate. And lastly, when we're done with the installation, I will demonstrate updating a GPG key into my GitHub account. I will pull a private repository to demonstrate that the key is working correctly. All of that will be done by the script that I will use. So without further ado, let's get started with the actual demonstration. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring up the window file manager. We've already downloaded the files that we need. So we're going to use the certificate first. Simply double click on the certificate name. When that comes up, you're going to be told you're going to open it. You specifically are going to install the certificate into the current local machine, the local machine. If you get this prompt, tell it yes. Place certificate in the following store. The store that we're interested in is called Trusted People. And scroll down until you find it. If you've already installed this certificate, all you're doing is replacing it, which is okay. We finish, install the certificate, we're done. And with that, we're done with the certificate. The next step is to unzip the Arch.zip file. We will double click on that file name, and you notice that's the content that's in the file. We'll just go ahead and extract everything from it. I will put that on my C drive at the root, and I will put it into Archlinux 01. So I'm currently running WSL2, and I have an Archlinux distro that I'm using right now. We're going to create a second instance. So we do the extraction. When the extraction is done, we're going to navigate to the location that we downloaded data to. And we will notice that there's an executable, and there is the root tar.gz file. The instructions tell us to rename that file. That becomes the name of the installation. So after we've done the unzip, the next step is to rename, and I'm going to rename that file Arch01.exe. Archlinux 01. The next step is to run that program. We're going to run the installation at this point. You might get a protected message. Click the More option. Run this anyway, and you'll see that Arch is being installed, and that's Bootstrap Arch Linux into WSL step 1. So now back on the file manager, you notice that we still have the Arch Linux, but we have the ext file system is what was bootstrapped. So that's a good first step. Next, we're going to go on and follow the rest of some of the instructions that are after install. I'll make some modifications to this as I go forward, and you'll see why in just a minute. So what we're going to do at this point is we're going to create, this is the DOS prompt that we're going to run. So we'll create a command prompt, and we'll navigate to the location of the executable, which on my machine is Arch.01. How about CD? Remember, these are your DOS or AKA command prompt commands, not your Linux commands at this point. If we do the directory listing, we will see that we have the file system, the executable, and root fs in this directory. We're going to run Arch. This will create an installer. I mean, the installer will actually create the keys. It lists a bunch of errors. It corrects itself as it's working. As you notice this run, you're going to notice mainly that it's complaining about GPG keys, but it does correct. This takes about 3 minutes. I'm going to pause the video and resume when it comes back. Okay, the base installation finished, and you notice that we are root at Reaper Archlinux 01. So that prompt is the name of the user at the name of the host and the distribution name that's running. Reaper is the name of my Windows 11 computer. That is the default host name whenever you install a new Arch machine or a Ubuntu into WSL. We will change that in the installation that ensues. The next step that we're going to do is we're going to change the root password. And we're going to use a super secret password here for everybody. 12345, 12345. At the very end of this demonstration, I will be showing you how to delete the distro that we just created. The next step in this installation on the wiki, the next step on the website tells us to use the wheel command. I'm going to use the Vim to do this, but I'm going to create another instance of WSL, but this is the distribution that is already installed, and you'll see that I've got a split screen at the bottom, and you see it's the same name, but it's a different user. And we're going to run a WSL command right now, and you're going to see that there are actually 2 instances of Arch Linux running on this computer. So what I'm going to do is use the sudo edit command and edit the wheel file so I can see the content of that file. So I'll just use sudo edit etc sudo ers.d/wheel. And I'll turn the passwords off at this point. I'm sorry, the keystrokes, and then I'll turn them back on. Okay, so at this point, you see the data that we want in the file. Fortunately for us, the base distribution doesn't have much in it, but it does have Vim. That's enough to get going. So we'll do a Vim, the same file name, sudoers.d wheel. And the reason I do this is because I'm already in root, so I would rather type directly into Vim, correct mistakes instead of doing echo commands. It's just a personal preference. So we're doing root all equals colon all, a bunch of alls, and do the escape key and paste it, delete that line, change the word to $wheel, and get out of that. So the bottom now looks like the top, root all colon parenthesis, yep, wheel, boom, boom, good. So we're good. So at this point, we've got the super user, we've created the wheel group, and we're going to add a user to the group. So the username that we're going to be creating will be knook. So it will be user add-m-g wheel-s bin bash, and the username is knook. Let that run, and next we will change the password, passwd for knook. That same super secret password, I'm going to turn it back on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my keystrokes are on, so you're seeing I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, this distro will be deleted as soon as this video is done. Okay, so now we've created the wheel group, we've added the user to the wheel. We're going to set the we've set the password for wheel, and at this point it's telling us to run arch config default user. So what we'll do is we will exit the bash shell returning to the command prompt, and we will do arch config -- default user, and that was knook. And now we're done to this step, at this step right here. Now he's telling us in his instructions, or her instructions, they're telling us to restart the window manager. I have a different step that I take at this point. I'm actually going to restart Arch itself. I prefer to do that because I want to know at this point, I expect certain things to work, so I want to see where I am. So this is just a quick sanity check for me. So from the command window, I'm just going to type WSL shutdown. You will notice that the bottom window went away, so any Arch distribution or Ubuntu distribution that you have running using this method will shut them down. I could have shut down a specific distro name, I just chose to do it this way. So the next thing that we're going to do is we are done with these instructions. We've already installed the certificate, so we're going to create a shell. We're going to create a shell, and at this point we're going to go ahead and create a shell using the drop-down. And this is the main Arch distro. You see Arch Linux booting right now, and we expect to see NeoFetch. Okay, that's great. So it's going to tell you that the uptime is about 9 seconds. That's what we would expect. Now the very next. Okay, I had a small problem, so off screen I fixed it. Windows terminal actually crashed on me, so I fixed a small problem. So we left off where we had just created the default user, and we're at this step where the instructions on the wiki site tell us to stop the network manager. What I'm going to do is instead I'm going to restart WSL. I'm going to go ahead and restart all running instances. So in my bottom window, we're going to do a WSL-L-V, and we're going to see that there are 2 instances running, and then I'm going to do a WSL-shutdown. Now note that we have, I'm running this command from Linux itself, from the bash prompt. That's because I have WSL alias to WSL.exe. I'll show you that over here. WSL. So I'll show you a little bit how I go about doing that, but from a bash standpoint, I make a few shortcuts to make my life easier, so I don't always have to go back to the command prompt. So you'll notice when I run this shutdown that the tab will go away and the bottom split went away. The only thing that remains is the Windows command prompt. It takes about 8 seconds for WSL to quiesce a distribution that was running. So when that distribution is finished, what we're going to do is we're going to assume the 8 seconds are done. I'll run the default distribution. I'm going to see that come up in the top. We're going to then do a NeoFetch. We expect this to be running a few seconds. So we're seeing that it's been running for about 7 seconds. This is what we would expect. And where I had the problem with Windows Terminal was setting up a new profile. So I'm going to go through that again so you can see the change that I made. So we go into the settings. We did a add profile. We created a profile called Archlinux 01. The things that you need to remember to do is rename the profile, name the distribution correctly. If you use the wrong distribution, it will launch whatever the distribution name is here. So you could create yourself some confusion. Make sure you change your username, and optionally go into the appearance, and you can set the font size or the color scheme that you want. So in this particular one, what I did differently was I changed the appearance. So if we go back to the settings, I look at the appearance, I changed the color scheme to 1/2 dark, so we can notice the difference between the 2 distros when I'm doing. Press the save button and you're done. So at this point, I should be able to do Control-Shift-P. This will bring up a Visual Studio-like dialog, and I can type in split. And you're looking for split pane with the greater than sign. This will allow you to select the distribution that you want to split, and it will allow you to position the distribution. So we're going to take the Archlinux 01 and we're going to do a split down. So now you'll notice that we have Nook running at Reaper at the root directory, so that's exactly what I expected to see happen at this time. Now is where we start to deviate from these instructions a little bit more. It's telling us to initialize the key ring. So at this point, I'm done with this part of the instructions, and we'll go back to my wiki and the way I would go about doing it and personalizing this instance for my use. So I go back to my YouTube directory to where I have my wiki, and we will vim the index file, and we will navigate right to the instructions. We'll go down about 32 lines, and we're going to follow these instructions right here. So in the bottom window, we do not currently have the which command. So if we do which, it's not there. So I know that Git is not installed. So first thing I'm going to do is a pacman. I need super user, so I'll do sudo pacman -sy, and then I will do git. And we'll type in that super secret password again, which was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll turn the keystrokes back on, and keystrokes are back. And so now we have Git installed. So I will do a git clone https GitHub trap bootstrap Archlinux.git, and a few seconds later I have the distribution. So at this point we're going to close down this window up here at the top, and we'll rely on the bottom window for the rest of the demo. So what we're going to do is take look at a couple files. Now fortunately for us, Vim is on this machine already, so I can run Vim and I can get some basic Vim capabilities. So there's no plugins, this is just base Vim. What you see is what you get. Okay, so we're going to navigate into the Bootstrap directory, and we'll go back into the Vim, and we're going to look at a couple of these files before I run them. The first one of interest is the config file, and I have all the flags preset, but basically 1 means install it, 0 means don't install it, and so I can control what I'm installing. So for example, I'm going to install some tmux packages, Vim plugins, Neovim plugins. We'll build Neovim from source, that sort of thing. We'll install a bunch of yay packages. This email address gets substituted. It gets written to your SSH git config file. Username is the username that we use for git commit transactions. I do something special with Ruby, so I want to make sure that I can build Ruby, because if I can get Ruby built, then I have a pretty good operating system set up for my personal use. It's a little more challenging to get Ruby RDNV set up. Rust and some of the other programming languages today are a lot easier to get installed. So I play with Ruby to make sure I can get all the development tools generally that I need. Also, being able to build Neovim from source, it gives me a lot of the development tools I need on a daily basis as well. So this is the name of going to become the name of the host, and this is the username that we're using. The next thing we want to take a look at is the host file. We will modify this host file to your intent, whatever you want. I just put a couple private network examples in here. I don't put any public examples. We'll also want to take a look at the repos. This is a list of repos that you could have cloned. So these are repos that I clone. They must be public at this point. So right now this script will not support, without modification, it will not support cloning private keys, and that's by design. We want to take a look at the WSL template file. This file is something that controls how Microsoft WSL does the bootstrapping of the kernel itself. So you're going to see I've got some capital names in here: WSL username, WSL hostname. Those will get replaced with the sed command. We'll do the same thing in the SSH config template. We're going to change the git username, and we're going to change the WSL hostname. Again, we're going to use a sed command to do that. So it's the basic information you need to get a decent host name for your new distribution, as well as being able to get a private public key set up so you can do work with GitHub or anywhere else you want to do work. Lastly, we're going to take a look at the package. I'm sorry, not lastly. We're going to take a look at the packages. Then we're going to take a look at the installation script itself. So you can see Pacman. It's just a list of packages that I want installed. It's a bash array. They're listed alphabetically order. Fortunately, the Pacman, Yay, and those things are smart enough to figure out dependencies. So I put them in alphabetical order just so I can find things faster. If we go down a little bit, there's some Ruby stuff, some pip stuff that I want to try to install, Yay stuff that I want to install. If I was doing this installation on my real computer or the computer that I'm actually creating this video on, then I would install desktop applications. And in those rare occasions where I need to support a customer where I actually have to do .NET, then I'd go ahead and install some .NET stuff, and I'd blow everything away when I'm done with the distribution. Next thing we're going to take a look is at the install script, and I'll show you how that works. It's pretty brain dead. It starts with the main function, and it just basically does everything sequentially. So it's procedural. It just basically think of it as step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So one of the things that we'll take a look at is we'll look at a couple of functions that are not interesting, but just to show you what the flags are being used. So in the case of the operating system updating the keys flag, if that flag is set, it runs the commands that are on lines 86 through 90. So if I want to modify this script at all, I got functions that do one and only one thing, but each function is protected. So if the script runs top to bottom, I don't want a bunch of checks at the top saying should I do or should I not do something. I just let the function take care of that. So with that said, that's the overview of what this thing does. So we're going to just run it. And we're going to type in that super secret password, which was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and let this thing rock. Now I'm going to pause the video in just a minute because this takes a little while. I think start to finish it's about 25 minutes. The long pole right now is resolving all the keys. So there's some resolving of the keys that take a while. Once we get to the actual installation of the software installation, all the packages that I'm running, building of the software, etc., that's about 15 minutes. So between the two, it's about 5 to 10 minutes to get all the keys dealt with. And then it's between 10 and 15, 20 minutes to do the packages. And the reason I'm giving a range is it depends on what I'm installing. So with that said, I'm going to pause the video and I'll come back when it's done. There's probably 2 steps. There's at least one more step where it's going to want a password. I'll pause it. I'll unpause at that point and tell you what that password is for. Okay, the keys have been adjusted, and now we go on to starting more interesting things, type in a password correctly. And we're going to start updating the programs that I specified in the packages. You'll notice I use no confirm log because I run this mainly unattended. So I'll pause the video and come back when this is done. Okay, we just finished installing all the application programs. Now we're going to create that public-private key I was talking about, which will immediately be followed by cloning repositories, bootstrapping Neovim, and bootstrapping Vim itself. So I'm not going to put any passwords in because I don't really care. Okay, Neovim has finished bootstrapping itself. We're going to quit this program, and it will be followed by bootstrapping Vim. So with Neovim, I use the lazy package manager, and with Vim, I'm using plug. So both are updated, and now we have a system ready that is configured. The next step is to reboot. So we'll just go ahead and do the same trick. We'll get out of this window here, and then from this other one, we will just do a WSL shutdown. That'll shut down the running instance. We'll give it that 8 seconds. As soon as that 8 seconds is over with, what we expect to see is it come in with the new host name. And so we expect that host name to be 0. And 0 is there. So at this point, if we go into my git SSH directory, we're going to see the key that was created. So the way to update the key is just to cat the public key to your terminal, and then over on the Vim on the GitHub side, the new key, give it a name. I'll just call it 0, and then I'm going to try to copy paste this using the terminal, and then paste it in as plain text. Quick visual check. Look at the last couple characters, look at the top character, everything looks good. Add the key. I'm going to use two-factor authentication. Okay, to recap, we've finished installing the private public key. We're now going to confirm that private public key works. So what we'll do is we'll do a git clone using HTTPS. We expect it to fail because I'm going to try to access a private repository. Git clone github.com trap/me.git. I expect this to ask me for a username password. It won't work. So at this point, I'll just run one of my shortcuts. And now I'm going to confirm the private public key works. And the way we're going to do that is we will first attempt to clone a private repository. We expect that to fail, and we will use my private repo. We expect this to ask for a password, a username. Obviously, this is not going to work, so we're just going to cancel this. Now I use one of my shortcuts, my functions that I run, which basically is doing the get at protocol. And so we're just cloning the same piece of code. So we expect this to work. So now this has demonstrated to us that we can pull information from the repository when a private key is needed. And if we go back and look and refresh the web page, we're going to see that the time it was last used on February 9th, it was added and it's been used within the last week, which is interesting. Okay, so at this point, we're going to remove the RMRF. We're going to remove the me directory because we don't care about it. We see that there's some changes in my Bootstrap directory. I care about one of the changes, so let's just see what they are really quick. We'll do a get status, and we see that there's a yay folder. The installation process actually builds yay in this location. We don't care about that, so we'll do an rm-rf yay, and yay is now gone, but notice there is a file that I changed. So off screen, I did make a change. So I'm going to take a quick look at that file, and I'm going to go into Vim, just a quick check on my setup. Colors aren't that great, but you're seeing me use Fugitive at this point. I can see that what I did was I want to make sure that I am not creating the resolve file. I want Windows right now to be generating that resolve file for me, because that's where we get DNS name resolution from. So what I'll do is I'll just add this, and okay, so we used Vim to check the differences. We made a commit message, we just haven't pushed it because I also wanted to see that my command prompt is actually recognizing that I have something to push. So you see the up arrow, that's telling me I have something to push. So if I do a get push at this point, I expect the push to work. Bada boom, bada bing, there it is. So at this point, if I do a get log command and do a -3, we're going to see the message I just put in. So some of these changes were made in preparation for this video, And at this point, I'm done. This video is over with, but I told you I was going to delete the distro. I wasn't kidding around. So we're going to go back to the beginning, and we'll go WSL-L-V, and we're going to see we got 2 running distributions. We're going to do WSL, and the command is WSL-unregister Archlinux 01. Please make sure you type in that unregister correctly, otherwise you'll get the wrong one. And just like that, that distribution is completely gone. So we do the WSL command again, and we're going to see that the original distribution is stopped. It's still there. If I do my, just run a terminal, we're going to see the other distribution is still there. So if I just create another shell, I do it right, there's the original distribution. Okay, so everything is good there. Now, one last final step that I take is I go back to the Windows file system, and I go back to where I just installed the distribution, and I just go ahead and delete the directory. And so cut this out of the talk and redo it. Okay, so we just deleted the distribution. The next thing I'm going to do is go back into Windows File Manager, and I will actually delete the location that we unzipped everything to. It's open somewhere else. What's got it open? Oh. Why does it think it's running? It's not running. Oh, that's because that's running. Yeah, okay. Okay, so let's do that over. Okay, so you can see if we attempt to remove the distribution again, it's already gone, which is what we expected. So we have one running instance. Since we're in that location of where the executable is, we still see that the executable is there, and we see the root file system is there. By practice, I exit at this point, I go over to the file manager, and I just simply delete that directory. So I go back and find it first of all, and I am just simply going to nuke that directory. Now that means it's like it's never happened. So at this point, I'm ready to start over and do this again. So I can do this many times as I need to. So I have one running distribution, and I create new ones as I need to. I hope you like this video. I hope you learned something from it. If you got some ideas on how to improve or things I can do differently when I have to use WSL, please let me know. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Thanks a lot for listening. I'm Trap, I'm out.